Hey, it's ODB from OLP. This is issue 161 of Mini Truckin Magazine, May 2005. This is Marlon's Nissan Frontier. This is an under construction issue, hence the under construction truck on the cover. Super hot model Hayley Schumaker. This is the 14th Severtized truck to be featured on the cover of Mini Truckin Magazine. Now, it's Wes Allison's 56th credited Mini Truckin Magazine cover, which technically, I guess you could spin it, it's his last. He technically does get credited for one more due to like a 20th anniversary redux issue that we'll talk about in the future. But the truck was also the centerfold, so we'll talk about that. It's the 4th Construction Zone Spectatular issue, as they spin it. It is also the 3rd cover truck with Lexani wheels. Now, I've never seen this truck in person. I have hung out with Marlon a couple of times, including at Lone Star Throwdown. Again, I think the this cover is pretty cool. I love the white background. You've got a first-gen Colorado tech article. Again, super hot model, sliding rag top. And this is a 2000 model truck, so we're starting to see some of the newer trucks, although we're in 05 now, grace the cover, if that makes sense. If you like what we're doing here, please watch these videos all the way through and consider leaving a comment, even if it's just a thumbs up emoji. Of course, liking this video is a must. We definitely appreciate it. And if you like what we're doing here, check us out via any podcast app. Just search OLP. Here we see an excerpt photo, and it just kind of gives that little bit of context about Marlon. Now, I should have asked Marlon the proper pronunciation, if I can even pronounce that, of his last name, but you see W-I-N, Winik, W-I-N-I-K maybe. You see a good mix of vehicles. Again, I've continued to reinforce that, a Frontier on the cover, hard body feature, Ranger or Toyota pickup, and then the Dodge Dakota. You see an MIC ad. Kind of the ads start to change at this point. MIC air works, air suspension that works. Long advertisers. And speaking of that, Rob Maggi was voted in the Mini Truck Hall of Fame. Actually, Master Image Customs, his company, for this year, 2023. A decade of decadence. Got a chance to see Lance recently and chat with him a couple minutes. Shout out to Lance in terms of his contribution to this publication. Ironically enough, with this issue, he talks about starting in May of 95. So this was basically his 10th anniversary, if you will, with the publication, and he talks about it in that write-up editorial. Mini Truckin News, we continue to see additional color and just kind of things that you'll see here from the art department. The one standout was the Mitsubishi Raider, debuted in Detroit. Rest in peace, Ernie Macias. You know, he loved Mitsubishis, and he was going to build one, I think, many, many years ago. Ultimate update. Ironically enough, this is Devious Customs, and I just kicked off our web series of OLP that we're going to be debuting here very, very soon. So if you can, hit that bell notification so that you'll be notified when we post new videos. But Jeff and I become good friends. I've stayed at his house before. Good dude. And of course, he has made a really good transition over the years from, mini trucks and full-size trucks to all sorts of things. Cadillacs, Lincolns, pretty much anything out there in Riverside, they do. Texas Extreme Truck Show. Extreme Rides meet Extreme Sports. There's Patrick Reed's famous Ranger. And some miscellaneous rides, including that Toyota there, that has been a staple in the scene a long time. If you do see anything, any good intel or anything you want to share, definitely appreciate the comments. I do. About once a week, I try to go back, if not more, and comment back to anybody that leaves a comment. So certainly do that. Many of you kind of ask, hey, I'm looking for something in particular. I do put a description in all of these videos, which is pretty much everything I cover. But sometimes you're going to have to just kind of skim back if you kind of know maybe a roundabout year or month. Or you can Google if it's something that I have wrote in text. Sometimes it will land you right on that video in terms of the feature name or whatnot. Midnight Fantasies 13th annual Lakefront tour. I went to this show 1 year. I think the year we went, it kind of rained a little bit, but it was the South, of course. And many of you over the years had went to this show. I think that was that the Pebble Pusher? Isuzu. But this was always kind of a solid staple. I think that's the DIB hard body. In the scene, many of you remember going to the show. I off the top of my head, I don't know if it still happens, if it still goes on. I want to say maybe one of the Hurricanes stopped it, but I could be wrong on that. Heather and Joey's Toyota, after it was black, we've had Heather and Joey on to talk about that famed truck and the reasoning behind redoing it from black, which I absolutely loved, but they changed the entire look of the truck, and they talk about that. Again, there's a huge catalog of back episodes via Podbean. That's our service provider, if you will. But I am starting to batch all of the old, well, at least the last 100 episodes, I'm going to batch over here to YouTube. And you'll see there's basically, I think it's a playlist or a tab that you'll click for podcasts. And that's going to pull in everything from our podcast stream, if you will. And that's pretty cool, so that people will be able to go back and listen to them for the most part. Kulture Klash. So again, Marlon, this Nissan Frontier, the cool thing about it was someone had brought this up to me, I think in Kentucky, and they said, hey, have you really ever looked at how many trucks were the centerfolds? And when I started this project, I never really would have thought to kind of break it down to that point, because in the early days, all of the trucks, up until probably not that long ago, a lot of the trucks were the center fold to a certain extent. You could easily bend, as I've said, these staples and pull this out and, pin it up on your wall, shop, toolbox, whatever. But in these later years, the feature, actually, the cover truck ends up in the pages in the 70s numbers. So what that does is it's not halfway through the magazine. So like in this case, they end up adding in the centerfold, if you will, right here smack dab in the middle. That way you could kind of take it out. What we could see here, and again, we'll get to the feature, is you see the severed logo. And again, pretty cool. I love that they picked this truck. I mean, I think it's sick with the hydros. And again, the model looking great there. This thing, you can see is super low with the rockers cut. And looks pretty cool. Here's Brandon Law with a cool title name, Dragged by Law. And this was by Lance Mart's Severtage truck. Dakotas, of course, we saw this in the table of contents, a little sneak peek. And Dakotas don't get enough love, in my opinion. But this thing was super clean. Recently, when we went to Trucks and Cheeseburgers, we met up with a bunch of guys that morning and cruised over. And one of the guys had an old severed Dakota. And he started telling me the history, and he got this truck, him and his girl, and how much work they had done to it. I was like, good God. It's crazy the amount of effort that people will put in to kind of rebuild a truck. Do the impossible. You got Draggin Thru here on the right side. Of course, this is Mike Alexander's famed column, if you will. And he talks about kind of building this crazy S10, back in the day. He talks about the tire availability and really just kind of pushing the limits. That was technically what he says there, his first mini truck. 05 Construction Zone Spectatular. Some of the baddest rides come in primer. That's what we see right up here. And this was pretty cool because, again, we start to see more color. Typically Construction Zone would have easily been, with the primer rides, black and white. But you see, a ramp up of the artwork here, kind of from the art department. And then the reason for that is, again, with Marlon's truck being on the cover, you end up with this Construction Zone Spectatular as they spin it. Here's Jason Spriggs, 96 Toyota Tacoma from Albany, Oregon. At the time, he was Magical Minis. I've seen this thing in person, of course, going up to the Relaxin' in the Northwest, the Awakening show, and other shows. Super sick. I think we'll see that again, maybe in show coverage. Here's Draggin Thru, Ryan Nelson, No Regrets. This famous dragging photo. Oh, the epicness. And I don't think they would always, and I haven't really talked a lot about this, but keep in mind, if I'm looking here briefly, there's no photo credit. They don't really typically focus, as far as I can see, on credit for who shot these. So that's one unfortunate thing when we try to slice and dice some of the data. Here we've got Rico's 99S10, of course, from Aftermath. Shout out to Rico. I actually just did a collab post. And you can see there, we did a cool collab post. He also was on one of the Bent trading cards, B-E-N-T. You can check him out on Instagram. I tagged him, and I think it was a collab post. Here we've got Chris's 86 Mazda B2200 from Class Act. Super clean. Again, Mazdas were and continue to be kind of a mainstay up in the Pacific Northwest. Tough competition. Brad Rupert's 93 Ford Ranger from Negative Camber. We got plenty of ads in here. A lot of the lion's share of this issue, as you would imagine, were under construction, kind of those one-page features, and that's understandable. This was a huge mod at the time, the flush-mounted taillights, LEDs, and that continues to be something we see pretty often. A lot of guys, I think, have just kind of resorted to keeping the factory taillights these days. But we get to page 76 and 77, we see kind of the full spread of Kulture Klash, Marlon's own blood, sweat, and tears. Again, shout out to Sever. This is the 14th Severtized truck on the cover. And you can see definitely something different. I really dig it. I really do. Shout out to Marlon. And you see there the hydros. You see the sliding rack top, the Severed logo on the back, the shaved corners. I actually like the shaved corners on these. I think I'm just against them on some rides. Most of them, they do look good. But super low truck. And loved the tie-in there with the welder and the model. Again, a 2000 model truck. Super clean. And as many truckers, you know, I've talked about this since I kind of started this. You know, this was a segment that had been in the publication since pretty much the beginning, if you think about, but it's really near and dear to our mini truck hearts because of the fact that mini truckers, you know, it takes us time to get our rides finished, so we often want to bring them out in primer. Here was the inaugural Havoc show. Note they say inaugural, not first annual. That's a technicality we like to give Mike a hard time about. Dire Straits. So kind of a cool title to me, ties into Dire Straits, which is maybe a saying, but obviously one of my favorite rock and roll bands, Dire Straits. But this was Chris Dyer's 91 Nissan hardbody from Driveway Works. I remember when this thing came out, just a super clean truck. I think we're starting to see the resurgence of trucks like this, you know, with the cleanliness. But I was always just a big fan of that center console there, just with the, you know, the tube bent. The door panels, you know, very kind of basic, elegant, if you will. You can see there out of Georgia, no trailer. And just a super clean look. Lance shot this one, you can see there. And certainly, I mean, these are some of my favorite trucks. Just stuff that's super clean. You look at the seat, you know, it's a bench seat. You've got, looks like the painted dash, you know, kind of custom but basic at the same time. Just super clean, I think is the way I would put it. Engine bay with the wheel tubs, all painted. You know, it's a driver. The inside of the bed, it can't get more clean than this. You know, the step notch there with, you know, that factory look and feel. And then, of course, you've got, it looks like there, the gas filler. Definitely a timeless truck, in my opinion, and one of my favorites from this era. Then we have Jose Torres, his 94 Toyota, Mooresville, North Carolina. This is one that Lance shot from Subculture Worldwide. And when I had that brief conversation with Lance, you know, he mentioned that anytime he would shoot or those 5 covers or so that were under his belt for Subculture Worldwide during his reign in his time as the editor, you know, he really reinforced that he wouldn't just shoot any of his guys' trucks in terms of the club. He would really, you know, reinforce them. It needs to be a complete truck. It needs to be finished. Of course, he knew he'd maybe get some backlash from people going, oh, you just feature Subculture rides, and that was not the case. Lance certainly kept it real when it came to that. You can see here FBI Fender Bender Incorporated ad on the left, and then the famed Mini Truck and Graffiti. So there's the photo there that I was talking about. I thought it was show coverage, but that was the truck we saw earlier. And you see a crazy Devious setup there. There is that famous cover Blazer making another appearance, I think just out of the blue. And mini truckers hanging out, looking at something, maybe in Greenville, back in the day. What do you guys think? This is issue 161, May 2005. We're going to keep on keeping on. Thanks for all the support. If you watch these all the way through, I can't thank you guys enough. The channel continues to grow. We've got so much more to cover, but again, we're going to start a new web series. Some of that audio will also batch to our normal podcast link, if you will, through Spotify or whatnot. But it's also going to be viewable video format as well here on YouTube. So stay on the rise, everyone. Be safe out there and keep it locked, if you can, to OLP. Shout out to all the mini truckers and just good kinfolk out there. Whether you identify as a mini trucker or not, we appreciate you. Go ahead and subscribe. This model, though, Hayley. We out ya. Peace.